Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Season 2 of Conversations in Pop Culture, where I have with me professional wrestler Colossal Mike Law, who has wrestled all over the U.S. So welcome to the show.
Man, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, man. A lot of great things, and ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, I'm excited, and I think we should probably start with where are you right now? There's a million questions that are going to come in later on. During the replay, probably during this interview, because this is the most unique background you have.
This is a very cool. So this place called the Skinny. The governor, if you look at him right over there, one of my best friends. He's known him for 20 years. It's his birthday, and he has his birthday bash every year. Obviously, last year we couldn't do it because of COVID, so I've only been to one of these second time. So I'm very skinny to the Lower East Side in Manhattan, and yeah, it's very colorful.
And I love it. I love how dedicated you are. I really love this. I love how we're doing this right here, right now. It's the most unique interview that I'm probably ever going to do. So.
Yeah, exactly, man. Just I haven't been here in forever. I don't even know the last time I've been in this place. So they redid it up. It was pretty cool, man. I mean, I dig it.
So I definitely want to talk more about what recently happened in your career in the last few years. But I do think it's important to talk a little bit about your background, because you came into wrestling in a very unique way, very differently than everybody else, and you've had an interesting journey into wrestling. So how did you get into it, and you sort of fell out of it, and then you came back into it, and you're like Mr. Indie for that.
It's been a love hate relationship with the wrestling business since 1998. I started training in 1998 at age 15. And when I say training, it was getting beat up every week for a few years, and then kind of earning my stripes. And then from there, like it was a different animal, man. Like training back then and now. And now these days, for the most part, it's done with the right training, the right training facility. It's very systematic. Back then, it was kind of like the Wild West, and pretty much got my ass beat a lot. It just, I guess they try to like weed out people in terms of physical toughness and mental toughness. And so that was one of the things I had to overcome, man. I was 110 pounds, soaking wet with two, cinder blocks in my pocket, So a lot of the guys who were bigger, either jacked or just huge people, didn't like smaller guys in the business, and they made me like think about it a lot when I was coming up. Wrestled for a few years, wrestled in the Pittsburgh scene, and then from there, I started being a promoter. I would promote events for FW Wrestling. We do a lot of shows in Manhattan, Queens. We've been pretty good for a while. And then, in 2000, I stopped wrestling, at that point. I was just more promoting, more of the booking end. And then I started, back in 2015, when FW went out of business, I still had that desire, man, to perform and to wrestle and to, just kind of showcase my talents. I try to help people, some a little undeservingly than others, fulfill their quest. Some of them took advantage of it, some of them did. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to do my own thing. And, since 2015, I've been hitting me hard.
Yeah, and I want to talk about 2015 because you reinvented yourself in many ways. But I do want to talk about FEW because one of the things, and I don't want to get too much into the politics of everything that happened, but you were wrestling, and then you were on the promotion side of things. What was that like for you, insight into wrestling? Because promoting something and understanding the booking, understanding the marketing is very different than wrestling. It's a very different angle. And then when you came back really in 2015, 4 years of wrestling, what was that like having that inside knowledge of the other side? Because it must have helped you in a lot of ways.
Right. No, Andrew, I appreciated the back end look more. I feel like I'm not a stranger to promoting. I had run my own business, my own craft show business with a partner in Long Island for a few years. So the idea of putting events together and event management was not new to me. I helped essentially create a company called Victory Pro Wrestling in 2006, along with my buddy Sean and Rich. So the idea of promoting was not new. I got a whole new respect with the bigger picture in terms of getting sponsorship, in terms of getting to work with more main talent than I had before. That was an experience I didn't have previously. It was just mostly working with a lot of independent wrestlers. What I did on my end, I worked more with the independent guys and trying to get them seen by the FWE owner. They had their favorites, of course, but me, I always try to push the idea that hey, we can use the names to bring the fans in, but we need to give the younger guys and unknowns more of an opportunity to be seen, so that way we can stop using the names as much and infiltrate the card with more less known talent guys that were worth seeing. And I think that was a loss. That was always an uphill battle because there was always two train of thoughts when it came to promoting FWE and booking it. I'm still friends with those guys at the end of the day, but those were some harsh battles. 4 in the morning, getting calls and talking over strategy, and when you're trying to wager your thought process saying, hey, this makes more business sense than this, and it doesn't go accordingly, it got frustrating for me. It wasn't, I didn't own the company, I just booked and promoted the company. Sometimes it was tough because sometimes you had to eat shit with it. I don't know, like, unfortunately. The first time I learned a lot, it was a crazy experience, and it helped me relate to the business side for the promoters and how much they have to put together in order to be able to, make ends meet. Like in New York State, it's hard to run a wrestling company. I don't know, to be honest, I don't know why anyone would do it.
Yeah, and even this idea that I think we were ahead of your time because now we're starting to see companies like WWE and AEW and even Impact are starting to utilize their undercard a lot more efficiently, starting to book them with bigger name talent because even beyond wrestling, PCW is doing that as well now because you look at where people are being pulled from, it's those promotions. And so you almost need to constantly rebuild because your top talent gets bought up essentially. And then they go to WWE, and then you have to build new talent. And all of a sudden you're
Right.
left holding the bag if you didn't develop new talent. And I understand that FEW was sort of, that wasn't the case in 2011, 2012, 2013, but that's the new case now in wrestling. So what is that like to be sort of ahead of the curve a little bit on that?
I will say with FWE, it was most of the time it was one of those things where I will say we were bringing in. We weren't the first company in New York to ever bring in big names on a regular basis. I'm sure there were USA Pro was close to doing that. I will say that we at least, when the opportunity presented itself, tried to put together cards that match some of the unknown talent with some of the more well-known talent in order to create, more opportunities for people. Did it always work out? No. Some people, I think, rely too much on that one booking a month to get their notoriety when, rather than using that as a platform to make themselves more well-known. And that's where I kind of shot myself in the foot because whereas I never wanted to be one of those guys that was a booker, promoter, and then put himself on top of the show. I just never been my mentality. I kind of felt that some guys didn't take advantage of it. You know what I mean? Like, didn't take advantage of the idea that here's a platform where we were doing iPay-per-view. We were the only company at that time to release, DVDs high definition other than the WWE. We were doing it even before Impact. And then, guys weren't taking advantage of this footage and these opportunities to put themselves in a higher platform. That way they could become a name. So that way they could become more well known. And, for people, most part, you don't see them anymore. Like, TCO, a lot of those guys were given the ball and dropped it. From my perspective, I try to push the guys that I knew worked hard and could be something more than just a local indie guy. And some guys flew with it, some guys didn't. And that's and you can only do so much.
Yeah, and I agree. I want to get out of FEW because I want to talk about Warriors. Because that was almost your big turning point in 2015. You reinvented yourself, and you faced a lot of guys in there. People like Joey Ace, Chris Romero, Anthony Gargone, Mark Quinn, Jabba Alai, TJ McCroney, and there's all these names that you faced. Darius Carter a bunch of times. So what was this like coming to this promotion and facing some of the best on the indie in a lot of ways that have dominated?
I always said this, like, Warriors Wrestling. It's funny because I watched the documentary. I kind of like always like the old stuff more than the newer stuff because even when I was around, I always thought it was a little bit different. Like they weren't like, I guess the mentality changed. And I can understand why Joey and Warriors have changed it. I'm loving the fact that a lot of the guys that I wrestled for when I got there have gone on to better things and deservedly so. It was hard, man. You know what I mean? It was humbling. It was humbling to start literally from the beginning again. Because you got to realize I hadn't wrestled since 2011 or 2012 was the last show I had wrestled, and then after that I was just not wrestling anymore. And to go from just square one again and like, okay, now I got to prove myself. These people don't know who I am. The wrestlers down in the roster didn't know who I was. So, with maybe a few select few that need me some training every once in a while. So I had to prove myself again and, go in there and just humble myself. Like, hey, these guys don't know who you are. They don't know your reps. They don't know what you've done before. Nor do they care. And rightfully so. I'm not one of those guys that lives on their past, accomplishments. I think a lot of the guys who came up during my era just had that mentality. It's like, oh, I was a big deal in the indies in, in 2002 or 2003, like show me my respect. Meanwhile, you haven't been relevant in 10 years. That's not, I don't know, this is not something very realistic.
And there's a saying that there are people who wrestle two matches and they're training people, and that's not who you want to be trained by. You want to be trained by somebody who's obviously a wrestler. You want to take advice from a wrestler who's trained wrestling. They just had a match like 3 minutes ago, and obviously, that's sort of the same mentality. I think what you're saying, some guys are using what they've done in the past to sort of piggyback off of. And I find that in Warriors, you really built your name out. You were also part of the Kings of New York, and you made it to the finals against Zelda a bunch of times. And so obviously you went through people like the Andros, the Greek, Rex Wallace, and Pacifico. He's too hot, as well as Zelda in the finals. And that was the first time you did the Kings of New York. What was that like? That was a very big spotlight, especially since you were out of wrestling for a while, coming back into it.
Yeah, I mean, tournaments are always hard anyway. I mean, I explained this on a podcast a few weeks ago with regards to the Super 8. It's always, to me, it's always difficult because, especially if you proceed in the first round where you wrestled and now you got like getting yourself warmed up and getting your blood flowing is, once you're there, it's like, okay, now I'm good to go. Now, I can go 25, 30 minutes, whatever it is, getting that first, win. But then from there, one of the things that you have to talk about is when you lose, when you win that first round and then now all of a sudden you got to go in to and you got to wait. You got to wait for, that second round. And it's like, oh shit, now all of a sudden 20, 30 minutes of me waiting and I'm pulled off and now I'm mentally it's like starting over again. So tournaments have always been, I love doing them, but they're definitely a physical and mental toughness regarding that. And, being in it the first year was awesome. You got some great talent, but winning it the second year, second or third year, was even better. There was a who's who of people in there, of great indie talent, like, Chuck Taylor from AEW was in that tournament. Stacey Williams was in the tournament the year I won. So was Dan Barry, some some excellent talent, and it was definitely Sonny Kiss, I believe, was in as well, Darius Carter. I definitely think it was an honor to have won that.
And let's talk about that winning, because one of the things, one of the people you had to go through was Sonny Kiss in that tournament that you won. And Sonny obviously is very good at what Sonny does. Sonny's AEW, and this sort of started a feud between the two of you. And what was that like? Because you said you were in the ring with some top talent. Obviously, AEW pulled a lot of people out of these places. And what was that like, getting the ability to wrestle people that are now much harder to wrestle? And that didn't exist 5 years ago in wrestling, because AEW wasn't a thing. WWE wasn't pulling out of movies. You got AG, you got Josh Briggs, you got a bunch of people who've been pulled out of the indies, Christian Casanova. And if you have a match with any of these people, you very well be your first and last match with them. And so, what was that like for you? Getting the ability to wrestle, because then you and Sonny had a ladder match, a 4-way ladder match as well. And it's crazy, just those matches. And to think that 2 years later, Sonny would be in AEW, and a bunch of these other people would be in AEW that you wrestled. I mean, it's just ludicrous to me, and it's not even fanable, if that makes any sense.
Right. No, I mean, listen, everyone who's on those lists, I pride myself on never giving up, you know what I mean, in the sense that I have a lot of pride in what I do, and, I'll always be my toughest critic. As far as Sonny, you had to know there was something to him that was going to propel him to another level. You know what I mean? He stands out. He's a star. You know what I mean? You can see it. Everyone else like Mark Glenn, people like that, all these people had bright futures. Also realized back when I started in 1998, and my first pro match was in 2001. It was a different animal. You know what I mean? We didn't have social media. We had to take VHS tapes, if anyone can remember what the fuck is that, and put them in an envelope and mail them to promoters. So it was one of those things where we, at that time, we were able to, it was difficult to get ourselves out there. You know what I mean? It was very difficult for us to get the notoriety. Whereas now you have the online stuff, and it's not, it's a lot more competitive for sure, but it wasn't, it was a different animal altogether. But seeing every one of these people succeed and go on to AEW and WWE, it's very cool, man. AEW is one of those things where, I'm proud of them. You know what I mean? I mean, I can't say I'm proud of them because I don't. It's not like I trained them, but I'm saying it was very cool to see them, on TV and to be on that level.
And I can imagine just even being in the ring with these people and knowing that you were in this, you beaten some of them beat you, and that you got to share the ring, because as I stated before, and I really believe it.
They got to share a ring with me.
Exactly. It's really their honor, and you are just being gifted, very clearly. And one of the things that I like about this, Sonny, is Logan Black said it perfectly. That's not in a comic book, a character has to die. That's when they make their exit. And I know you had a few matches after that Sonny match. I think that was the perfect ending to your run in Warrior in many ways. That match was phenomenal between the two of you. And I think that kind of solidifies what you did in Warrior and that transformation that you engaged in. And so how does that make you feel? Because I think it was a perfect ending. Even though it wasn't the last match, it really was. I feel like everything that, accumulated and that evolution and that expansion, and you come back. And then you showing that, you can hang still in many ways. And you can not just hang, you can dominate.
Right. Yeah, man. I think with anything else, man, and I have a lot of love for Warriors. I had a lot of great opportunities. I had a lot of, I think I could have done more. That's something that's more of a backstage thing. I'm not going to get into that, but I think to me, I know that I could have done more. But sometimes you gotta know what to put when you're ahead. And to me, I was like, I kind of felt a need to. I never want to be one of those guys who's just on the card for the sake of being on the card. You know, if I can't give anything worthwhile to an event, to a wrestling event, then I have no reason to be there. You know what I mean? I've said this to promoters before. I don't mind being one of those guys you bring in once or twice a year. Unless I'm supposed to get that contract, I don't mind being an independent wrestler. You know, my allegiance is to those who do business right by me, and Warriors was good. To me, I knew there was a time to kind of keep things moving, and you know, I know they're doing their thing, so I wish them well always. But for me, I knew that it was time to kind of go out there and venture off.
And what is that like? Because that is a real skill to know when it is time to leave. You know, and it doesn't apply to just wrestling; it applies to everything.
Right.
Because if you overstay, you could ruin your reputation. You could ruin who you are. You could ruin what you've accomplished. You know, it's a lot easier to ruin a reputation than to maintain one. And so, obviously, what was that like? Because that's an important skill.
Very well said, Andrew. Most definitely, man. I think one of the things, sometimes it's a gut feeling. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's a gut feeling of like, you know, man, I'm looking around here and I don't see anything here that either brings value. And this is not just, I'm not saying this specifically about Warriors. I'm just saying in general, you know, the way I look at it is like, okay, am I bringing any value to this organization? Is this organization bringing any value to me? You know, at the end of the day, you know, we love pro wrestling. I love being a pro wrestler, but it is a business, and ultimately there has to be that there has to be a value. There has to be a reason why I'm there. There has to be a reason why they're providing me with the level to do what we're doing. And so that's important. You know what I mean? That's an important aspect of how I feel when it comes to, hey, you know what, man? Maybe it's time to kind of just move on from these things. I think a lot of wrestlers become satisfied and complacent in where they're at, and they just stay there. I never liked that. I never wanted that. If I like, you know, I I've wrestled in Dominican Republic. I wrestled in Canada. I wrestle anywhere pretty much given the opportunity. You know, and it's always great to break new grounds and get to see a new audience and get to meet new wrestlers and see what styles these people incorporate. You know, like I still want to go to Mexico. I know I was supposed to go last year and that didn't happen because of a pandemic, but I love to learn the styles. I love to kind of incorporate it to my own style. So I think to me, people who are complacent within their spot anywhere in life, you either get the gut feeling or you got to ask yourself the hard questions. And the problem is, a lot of people don't want to ask themselves the questions.
It's very hard to ask tough questions,
Right.
And analyze what you're doing, where you're going with things, what you're doing. I asked myself plenty of tough questions all throughout COVID. So I'm well aware of tough questions and everything. And one of the things that I want to talk about, because I felt, and I still feel this way, and I don't know how you feel, but ECAA. It is very much, and I might get you into trouble, and I'm going to get myself in trouble. I feel like in the last few years, their brand has been a little bit sinking, and I feel that now they're starting to turn that corner. Obviously, with a very good professional wrestler, and him being in there, and even the last two Super 8 tournaments were very interesting. But going before that, you came in, and you obviously were aiming for their world title. And you faced Azrael and Ty Austin, and you and Ty Austin took wars between the two of you. You had 2 out of 3 full matches. You were chasing the title. Joey Ace was involved in all of that. And obviously you had a rivalry that spun out with Joey Ace. What was that like? Because I felt that seeing those matches and watching, there was something that bringing to that promotion that wasn't there before. And
some people refer to it as the dark ages of ECWA. Listen, man, it goes back to promoting. It goes back to the right management. During that time frame, it's nothing. To me, it's so baffling. It's so. I don't like. It's not the roster's fault, man. I felt for the people in that roster. Because think about this: the roster that ECW had under the old regime had guys like Joe Gacy on it. There were Joe Gacy was in the WWE now. Like so, there's the Super 8 in 2018 that didn't get anybody. Unfortunately, had Chase Owens, had myself, Cheeseburger from Ring of Honor, Anthony Green, who's now August Gray in NXT, Richard
On
Holiday.
twice.
Right. So it's just one of those things, man, that unfortunate because management at that time weren't doing what they were supposed to do to get the word out. Nobody cared. And the audiences, the house shows were drawing pretty good, I guess, and then they kind of dipped. And it wasn't the roster's fault. There was plenty of good talent that was still there. From even the women's division and then the male division, there was always talent. It's just, if a promoter is not going to do what their job entails, and that's promote, it's not going to be successful. The wrestlers can only do so much. It has to boil down to the promoter getting a good social media team together, getting a good street team together, and making that happen. As you can tell, I mean, I think with the fact that the Super 8 trended on Twitter this past May, a few weeks ago, it changed, you know what I mean? And I kind of knew that once the new management was taking over, that things were going to change for the better. And, I don't think I've been wrong. I think, there are things that from my standpoint, having been on that end of the booking side and the promotion, that I would do different. And then there's things that I'm like, okay, you guys are doing the right thing. And, it's like anything else. Like, it's their company, it's their promotion, but they're putting in the effort that, unfortunately, the previous management didn't. And I think you're going to be seeing a lot more positive things coming out of it.
And I'll say this, with that the 24th Super 8, the annual 24th version was phenomenal. I think that whether that's new management or old management, I thought that was a great Super 8. And then the last one I thought was amazing. And you had, I think, some of the best talent ever. You had Killian McMurphy in there. You had, obviously yourself. You had Devon Storm. You had everyone Anthony Alex in there. You had a lot of talent.
Matt Mikowski, Timothy Redden. I mean, listen, I posted that up on Instagram today about, just a picture. And like, I'm not one of those guys who, I'm not one of those dudes. Like, if I'm going to say nice things, I say it backstage. I say man to man or woman to woman or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a very direct person when it comes to that sort of thing. I don't really go online to try to, pop anybody. It's never been my style. But I had a lot of respect for the guys in this roster, and I'm super appreciated. It's an honor to have been considered in it. I watched the match back. I beat myself up over it. There's a lot of things on my end that I just, little intricacies, little things that I will beat myself up over. I gotta give Crowbar credit. On 3 hours notice, came in and just killed it. And everyone else, wishing a very good pro wrestler, speedy recovery. The thing that happened to him, man, that's just a freak accident. You know what I mean? Like
and let's talk about that. For those who don't know, and it was crazy because I was seeing it, obviously watching as a fan, and basically a freak thing happened. He snapped his ankle that broke in 2 places, and then I think broke in 7. And then nobody knew what was happening. Killian McMurphy got a count-out victory on it,
right,
because he couldn't walk. Nobody knew if he was a worker or not initially. It wasn't until Joey Ace came out that actually helped to carry him out. And I'm like, oh, wait, the guy who's playing a heel, and I know I'm breaking kayfabe here, is now actually helping out. This is real, or it's a really good work. It's one or the other. And then we find out a few hours later that, boom, that happened. And so obviously, what was that like for you being in that locker room? Because it's a crazy circumstance that happened to him. And nobody expected it. He's not the guy that I would expect it to. His style wouldn't lend it usually to an injury like that. and it was crazy. And I don't think it was Killian's fault in any stretch of the imagination. It was just a freak thing.
Um, you know, like I said, man, a complete freak accident. When no one, no one even in the ring for that coming. It's just crazy, man. It's just you never know. And I always tell people when they start to train in pro wrestling, like, listen, you don't ever hope to. You do everything you can to keep your body warmed up. I always say, listen, keep yourself going, and especially before showing up, and then just wrestling has never really been my thing. I like to keep warmed up. I like to warm up and make sure all my muscles and everything is on point. Um, when I first saw that happen, I go, even part of me was thinking, like, wow, okay, where are we going with this? You know what I mean? Like, I was looking from backstage, and I was like, what's going on here? I remember, like, what is this going to lead to in this match? And then, next thing you know, it just happened so quickly, and, the paramedics are out there, the doctors are out there, and they're checking up on him, and, it was bad. I mean, looking backstage and seeing how that foot was, I mean, I'm not a doctor myself by any means, but I knew there was a problem.
And it was crazy because nobody knew who was watching at home what was going on either. And so it was a crazy circumstance. And much credit to Killian McMurphy for knowing how to play that thing off into his character and what he can do in the ring and his promo ability. Much respect to that. The way he saved that ending was unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's. I don't think all things aside, whether whatever way things, wherever shift it would have occurred in, or what would have occurred in that tournament in the finals, I don't think anyone wanted it to end in that particular fashion. And I give him credit, man. Like, he has totally redone himself in a way where he brought on Big Gus, and it's one of those things where that combination works, and it helps him kind of create more an aura of himself, create more of a character, something that I think he knows he needed. I like him to change his gear. If I'm being direct, I would say that would be my only thing. Just change it up a little bit, man. I mean, don't be Mike Law here. Nobody can ever be me. I change my gear up every week. But I would say just little things like that. But he was true pro about it, man. So my hat's off to him.
Yeah, and I agree. And Killian's been on, and that's probably one of the best interviews I ever had. He spoke about nothing but Sonic the Hedgehog. So go listen to that interview, everybody, because it's a very interesting interview. And if you didn't catch it, he actually came out to Radical Highway. No, he came out to Live and Learn by Crush 40. And that's Sonic Adventure 2, for those who don't know all about that. So that's how that should have gone, and it was amazing. I was waiting for it all night for him to come out today. So that's all I'm going to say. It's not as good as you coming out, though, to a big, dumbbell. I love that.
Right. Well, and there's a time and place for the barbell. I always tell people, because people were asking, I go, listen, this is, I bring it in because it does set me apart from everyone else, and that's always been my goal. When I first started, again, I'm not crazy enough. I'm not a big guy in the sense of height, but I said to myself, there needs to be something that sets me apart from everyone else. And not only in terms of in-ring stuff, but what can bring people to get people's attention on me upon my entrance. And I'll give my brother credit. My brother, Ref Steven. He he's like, you should carry a big barbell out there with you. That would be very cool. And then, it just kind of took off.
And then how important is character? Because obviously, talking about Killian, he brought on Big Gus, and that creates a massive thing. And you have your big barbell, you have that giant position. Obviously, you have humor, but you also can go on the ring, and you do a lot of stuff. And obviously, it's super great if you prove that you can go on the ring very much. And you can drop the comedy stuff, and you can go and grapple with anybody and best them as well. And you have, obviously, Kings of New York, being in the Super 8, You don't just get into the Super 8, you get invited in. It's a big deal to be one of the 8 people, whether you advance or not. You obviously have to be one of the best wrestlers in the East Coast and in the United States, for that matter, to be invited to the Super 8. So, what is that like for you, knowing that your characters brought you some of that and those sort of skills? Because you need both wrestlers right now.
I mean, I think, like, I think there has to be a fair middle ground. You know what I mean? Like, the one thing I was doing too much was I'd be not within the last like 3 or 4 years, but like before that, maybe in the early 2000s, I was doing too much character work, and I got called out on it. And rightfully so. I remember Doreen, old Ring of Honor name right there. Element, I think is his current name. He accused me of being lazy one time. He's like, "Oh, you're lazy," and I knew I wasn't. You know what I mean? But I knew that I was trying to get the most out of the least, I guess. But then, the style has changed, and you have to get with the times with that. I know there are a lot of guys that want to incorporate a style that doesn't do as much in order to their bodies. Listen, I'm 38 years old. I feel great. I move pretty good, I would say. I haven't been injured, knock on wood. And there's a way to do it. I look at it. There's so many guys these days that can take the modern style and incorporate stuff to elongate what they do in order not to, avoid injuries. Because listen, if you're in the pro wrestling industry, man, I don't care who you are. You're gonna know that an injury is gonna happen. It's gonna happen. It's inevitable. You do this enough times, it's a numbers game, and I think we all try to minimize that by just working smarter and knowing our audience. And I think for me, knowing the audience of who was going to watch at the Super 8 and the kind of fans that were going to watch that, I had to turn it up a little bit. Again, not my favorite performance ever, not my favorite match, but that was on me. But I would say that you have to have a medium. There's nothing wrong with being a character and showcasing that, but when the bell rings, it should be more business than anything else. For the most part, there are the exceptions to the rule.
I think the exception is in many ways Orange Cassidy, and I think the rule and the standards are Chris Jericho and The Miz in many ways, and I think are the people who have a very unique style. They really don't get injured all that often, Chris Jericho and The Miz, and they know how to utilize their character and have the wrestling technicality to back it up in a lot of ways. And if you look at, in particular, The Miz, in particular, that guy just has an amazing wrestling style that completely works with his character and should be what every wrestler does if you want to stay in this business forever. Because I think that guy is going to wrestle for another 10 years easily.
I think I love the idea that wrestling has all these different styles. You know what I mean? I don't mind. I've never minded the body stuff when it's done at a high level by extreme professionals. I never mind the hardcore deathmatch style is done at a high level by extreme professionals. Technical, all that stuff. I think a guy like The Miz, for example, works a style that allows him to be able to do this for many years and again, there's always a risk of injury no matter what style you have, because what we do is dangerous. But his style allows him to elongate his career without, the normal injuries that come with the running.
Yeah, and then I do want to change gears out of ECWA, and I do want to talk about Stan Styles, his intergender bonanza. I think this is some of your best work. You got to face Braylon, which is Rachel Bosnick. You got to face Thunder Rosa, which is probably a real honor in many ways because she's one of the best wrestlers in the world. And she's one of the best promoters and one of the best, company owners out there. Zoe Sky is killing it right now. And then obviously Queen Amita and Sean Henderson, that pesky Sean Henderson. We're going to leave it at that. And if anybody knows who Sean Henderson is, they get it. you also got to go against True Blood, Xavier Cross, Joey Skygan, and Linehan. And so what was this like? Because this is fun, and intergender wrestling is amazing if it's done correctly. And these matches were really, really well done.
No, thank you, man. Andrew, I appreciate it. That so my first, I don't know if my first intergender match was with Mickey Adams at a Wars of Wrestling taping. It was, again, man, woman, child, it doesn't matter to me. If you're a hard worker and you put your effort in, I've been fortunate enough, and I thank the promoters of the Intergender Bonanza for entrusting me the opportunity to face these women that are fantastic. I have a lot of admiration and respect for Ray Lynn, Zoe Sky, and Thunder Rosa. To me, I look at them as competitors in the sense that they go in as hard, if not harder, than the guys go in, and I love that. I mean, I came up with a more physical style coming up in the late '90s, early 2000s, and for my money, they're just tough people. They're just tough women, and I enjoy it because to me it was. I wanted to kind of showcase them and myself and touch, see this can be done at a high level and it can be done well, and there's always be told. And to me, I don't know. To me, the reaction from the fans showcased that was done successfully. And to see, I think all three of those. I know Thunder Rosa is with AEW. I think Ray Lynn should be there as well. I think Zoe Sky should have been there. They both should have been there long ago, along with Holiday and Lufisto. You can't. How is he not signed? It's crazy. But these again, it just goes back to the fact that they were dedicated, they worked hard, and it was a pleasure. I remember they all stick out for their own reasons. But I remember with Thunder Rosa, there was towards the end, I super kicked her so hard that I was like, she's probably knocked out. So I didn't even think about pinning her. So I go, that was like, I felt it on, like I wear wrestling boots. I felt it on the shoulder. That's how hard I hit her. And listen, and not to be outdone, she lays it in, and she lays it in good. So a lot of admiration, a lot of respect to them. They're all great talents. Should be signed. I mean, Thunder Rose obviously is, but the other two should definitely be signed as well.
And what is that like to know that if you're going to lay it into somebody, they're going to lay it in back to you? Because not every wrestler's like that. Not every wrestler wants it to be laid in. And not every wrestler says, hey, give me what you got, and I'm going to give it right back to you. I'm a big Gary J fan. Been on 4 times for a reason. And he hits stiff and he hits hard. And when you're in the ring with him, he can take it too. And it creates a very interesting match style and an interesting match mentality when you have that. So what is that like? Like Thunder Rose is a great example.
It's a mutual respect thing, you know what I mean? Like, you have to, as a professional, know the boundaries and the levels of which you're going to showcase yourself. And to me, if stylistically this is not something that somebody is into, then as a professional, you kind of work around it. You know what I mean? That's just what professionals do. Because you have to also realize if you plan on doing this long term and you plan on doing this 4 or 5 days a week, you have to be able to control yourself as well. So stylistically, even I'll always put this, I lay my stuff in. That's just the way but I will venture to say that I'm extremely safe in what I do, and that the intent of what I do is to make sure that everyone knows that what I'm doing is hard work and that it's done at a level that do it, but also do it where the individual will be able to wake up the next day and do it over again. You know what I mean? There's an accountability and there's a level of professionalism that comes to that. And listen, I'll tell you right now, Crowbar. I mean, we went at it. I mean, I gave him some shots, and he certainly gave it right back. And he was brought up a different way, and I love that. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that everyone is like that, or as a professional, I pride myself on being able to work around people's limitations, people's injuries, and and I would hope that the other person would, as a professional, be able to do the same.
And then talking about being a professional, I think you kind of got into this a little bit because you are a professional, is you got to wrestle for Limitless. And that's in the recent year and a half. And obviously Frank Yeager, Matt Daniels, Steve Penna, and obviously Limitless is killing it right now. And I know they had a bunch of dojo shows, and those did very well. Obviously, they have the road. And so what was that like? Because being at Limitless, for a lot of reasons right now, is very popular. Being in the dojo shows is popular. Beyond took some time off, and Beyond is coming back again. And so obviously, Limitless was one of the shows that was one of the first premiering shows on IWTV in the last year and a half of COVID. There's been a lot of eyes on Limitless because there's been a big stable on the East Coast to say, hey, I'm in Limitless, I'm in Beyond, I'm in GCW. Those names are very much recognized all over. And so what was that like being on a Limitless show and getting to go up to New England and Maine and be there and have that experience because it is very New England style?
No, absolutely. They have very broad audiences, and that's a great thing for the independents. You know what I mean? Like, again, a tool that wasn't something we had back in the early 2000s by any means, late 90s. So, and it's a great thing, being able to have that worldwide exposure, by wrestling at a place like Limitless. It's a very important thing, a very important aspect of what the advantage of what the independents have now. I will say this: the first time I wrestled at Limitless was in 2019, and that was against Indian, and that I think is the second, if I'm not misquoting here, the second highest Limitless viewed match of all time, 28 million views. So thank you, Davian. Another hardworking individual who should be signed as well. Absolutely. Everyone else, I didn't like my second foray into Limitless. I'd like to face Matt Daniels again. I think we're both two different wrestlers at that point, than we were. Especially him, he's improved by so much. I think I'd love to run that back. Adam Price is another guy that is just so full potential.
He's not going to be on the Indies for long. That guy's not going to be on the Indies for long. I give it a year and a half at the most.
Keep your head in the game, and the guy has some unmatched energy. I have some unmatched energy, and the guy will continue to be like a big deal, man. So I think, to be honest, he'll definitely get looked at for sure.
He's not going to be on the Indies for a year and a half. So
I would be surprised, but I definitely need to lock horns with him one-on-one before it's said and done. I love his energy. He has a lot of intensity, and he's somebody like, I'm not one of those dudes who like, so and so, book me again online and Twitter. I'm not. I think it's kind of cheesy sometimes, but like, he's somebody that I get excited about the thought of, like, okay, this dude can bring it, man. And anytime I could get in the room with somebody that I know is gonna just bring it, man, that keeps me going, in the wrestling industry.
And to even talk about this, because I am curious, and we've been sort of teasing it, obviously wrestling has changed. Since you came in, since you were wrestling, promoting, left, and now that you're in this, obviously you're a lot older than some of the young kids that are coming in, like an Alec Price, who's a lot younger. I'm 28, so I'm 10 years, I think, younger than you are. I grew up in the middle of the social media era. And so I have one foot in, one foot out. I remember both sides of it very, very well. It's quite scary, actually, now that I think about it. But what is that like? Because what is that like for you adjusting to it as a wrestler? What is it like when there's a lot of eyes on you? What is it like learning all the rules of it? Because, again, as I stated, it's very easy to ruin your reputation on social media. Very quickly, there have been plenty of wrestlers who have done it, And there have been plenty of wrestlers who've made their reputation on social media at the same time. And so obviously being older, and I'm half and half in it, so I sympathize. There's a whole learning curve to all of it, and navigating it can be a pain in the ass.
Right. I think in regards to that, man, I train and I gotta keep myself. I don't ever tell myself like I don't believe I like the idea of aging as in getting older. I always say to myself, I'm progressing in age, and I think for me, it's more about getting better as I progress in age, and also the idea of being smarter and being more intelligent with how I present myself in the ring. And I think it's more important these days for me, like, okay, I can make this happen with this individual in the ring, and we can do good business. You know what I mean? Like it's always for me. I'm always thinking about the business of the match. I'm always thinking about the business of the promotion. I'm always thinking about the business of what can we do to get more fans back? What can we get fans talking? And you know, I don't I don't look at it as the biggest test I'll ever had is against myself. And as you get older, I know people say like that sounds easy, but no, you really as you progress in age and get older, you start to realize your biggest adversity, your biggest doubter, your biggest like enemy will be your own thoughts within yourself. And that's what it was. You know, I don't go online and kind of talk about it, but I'll say it here. 3 weeks before the Super 8, man, I was feeling like shit, man. I'll be honest. Mentally, I wasn't working out as much as I should. I wasn't training. I wasn't moving right. I was just not mentally there. And I think a lot of it was my doubt as to, why me? Why was I feeling this Super 8 this year? There's so many guys that even I had referred to the Super 8 that I really like, and I think would have set that thing on fire. And listen, this class this year was totally badass, and those were white guys, myself included. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you kind of just look at yourself and go, what do I do to deserve the opportunities that I've been given? And that's to me sometimes it's like an uncomfortable question to ask, but I look back at my, things that I've done and what I've accomplished, and the things that I want to continue to accomplish as I move forward. And I go, you know what, man? You busted your ass. You treated people right. You always respect. You always try to be a pro. And that's why things happen.
Two greatest words in the English language are please and thank you. They open up 90% of the doors you need to pick up in life. And it's crazy. It's just when you use them, who you say them to, and that's what matters. There's a reason why Bryce Remsenberg has a job at AEW. Legitly, it's because he drove the Young Bucks car. I know Chikara is a dirty word, but that's the story, and we're sticking with it. But anyhow, obviously, I do want to let you get back to your event in a second here, but I am curious, how do you feel that COVID has affected wrestling? Obviously, going beyond just a bunch of events that are happening, and even going forward, because we're starting to turn the corner. I used to live in DC. DC is starting to open up now, and a bunch of other places are starting to open up. Obviously, there's a whole mask mandate that's happening and not happening. And I don't want to get too political, but obviously things are starting to turn around. But let's be also real. Where I don't think events are going to be coming back the same way they came back. And I also think that people are going to be very hesitant, especially I'm in Connecticut, in New York right now. New York is going to be more hesitant than Kentucky, just because New York and California are so far. So where do you think that's all going? Where do you think even wrestling just going to evolve to? Because I don't think that there's going to be. I think there's pre-COVID, COVID, and then after COVID.
Well, I will say this for starters, it definitely hurt merch sales. I'm a big merch guy, man. I don't ever get too detailed about finances, but that's like a big part of what I do. And it definitely hurt, man. It definitely hurt not having crowds there. I might hat off to any company that safely and within the realm of safety tries to run tapings, and I was part of a few of them, and I would say that a lot of precaution was taken, utmost precaution, I would say, by many of them. So, kudos to them. I tested every time after every taping, and I made sure that I was before every taping and after every taping. I would always take the test and make sure that I was, free and clear. And a lot of promotions that was mandated, and I respect that. It's about the greater good, and obviously everyone feeling comfortable about the idea of wrestling and performing again. And if you didn't, man, that's nothing on the person. People have their rights to do the same. Coming back, I would hope that promoters would be more willing to invest in their products. And I'm not just talking about lining up a stacked show, I never really been about that. I think if you put in 1 to 2 names and some hard-working independent wrestlers along with some local guys, it's a good mix to make sure that you're successful. Get a free team, it's just like, if you got to budget it in, budget it in. Lighting, production. I'm not saying do like the WWE and do pyro. I'm saying just those little things that I hope promoters took the time off from this whole pandemic to focus on making their products better. And, unfortunately, I've seen some already where the Flyers if a flyer is an indication, the first indication of what the promotion is, then it's just not going to be the good indicator. We live in a world today where there's so many talented artists and so many talented individuals who are able to Photoshop stuff. There's no reason the flyer should look like a bunch of faces are thrown up on it. I'm just a big pet peeve of mine, man. I've ran my own shows, I've promoted my own events. The flyer is a representation of what the fans are looking to buy into. And if it looks terrible, then, I don't know. I don't expect a lot of success. So everything that's required to the ring, all that stuff, man. I'm just a big proponent of everyone upping their game this time around. We had over a year to get our shit together, and if the wrestling business isn't looking to do that, then then it stays where it is. It's not going to elevate, and it's unfortunate. There's so many hardworking people. There is too much talent out there right now that are not being used on a regular basis that should get the exposure that they deserve, and it'd be nice to do it in front of 200 people.
And do you think that streaming is also going to just expand? Because I think it is going to be that when we come back to people, I think that the money and also the exposure of streaming is just going to expand. It's too big.
Andrew, sorry to interrupt you, but something I got to say about, here's what I think about the streaming services. I think they're fantastic. But here's what we should do with FWE. What we should do with FWE was this. We would have the pay-per-view, but we would have 2 matches. We would have one match that was a live crowd match. Well, 2 matches that were live crowds only, meaning that the only way you could watch these matches were if you bought a ticket to the show. And you would have it. People are like, oh man, that's so insulting. You would have Paul London versus Petey Williams as a dark match. No, because the idea was, hey, we're running this amazing show with a stacked card that you're going to be able to purchase for $14.95 on iPaper. But guess what? For the fans that are going to come and buy a ticket to this show for $25, $30 for the live show, they're going to see this one. You know what I mean? It's just little things like that we did that made us, made it seem like it made it feasible for fans to pay the extra money and go out of their way to come to a live show. That's just a little thing that we used to do, But that's what I would urge some companies to do. Put up a match that you're not going to see on IWTV. And it's not to hurt their business. If your cards are stacked enough and they're good enough, they're going to draw those IWTV buy rates anyway. It's just have that one match that's like, okay, this could be a good reason to show up to a live show.
There's a saying that you either have to be the most expensive, the cheapest, or the most valuable. And this is the way to add value into going to a live show beyond just meeting the wrestler and a variety of other things. You're having a pre-tape dark match, or even if they really wanted to, they could pre-tape the dark match and put it out 3 months later on YouTube. But all those people got to see it first.
Exactly. We did that with again the FW things. We didn't put them on the pay-per-view, but we would put them on the DVDs, as added bonus.
And so on that note, I want to let you get back to your event, but where can people find you? Where can people find you on social media? I put up your pro wrestling tees up in the description up above. So if everybody wants to go buy a t-shirt, that's the link to use. There's a bunch out there. But obviously Twitter, not too sure if you got a Facebook page, you got an Instagram, what shows you're going to be at.
All right, so let's start off with the social media because it's the easiest thing. You can follow me at Colossal Mike Law. It's easy. It's just my name, Colossal Mike Law, on Instagram and Twitter. You can follow my Facebook page as well. Follow my barbell. My barbell doesn't have enough followers. It's Barbie, the real Barbie, at on social media. My Store Frontier website is storefrontier.com. You can put on the search engine Colossal Mike Law, and you have everything from hoodies to kids wear to we have baby wear as well. I don't know if I have too many fans at that age, but it's always good to get them started young. We have the open house this coming Sunday for the Full-Out Shelter in Long Island City. You can hit up Joe Morales or Elliot Martinez for more information. I'll be training along with Steve Pena and Marcus Flanovich. We have the June 5th ECWA Heat Stroke event. That's going to be coming on live as well. So, yeah, man, I'm just keeping busy. That's all I can say. I'm blessed that I'm still able to do this after 16 plus years. And let's hope I can do it for 16 more.
And on that note, I've been saying that you have to support indie. And what that means is you got to buy people's merch. You have to go to shows. You have to go and engage in social media. You got to follow these people on Twitter. You got to tweet. You got to tell promoters and companies, hey, I want to see this wrestler. I want to see this.
I don't get enough of that. I don't get enough. People will tell me, they'll DM me. I feel like I'm a guilty pleasure for some people. We like this guy, but listen, hey, if you want to see me in a company, it's good. You can tweet at him. Whether it's gonna happen or not, who knows? I always feel like sometimes that's a little iffy, but you know what, man, it helps. Every bit helps. But it's funny because I get a lot of people DMing me, man, I love your work, I love your matches, the barbell, all that jazz, and we live in an age where it's a lot about the social media influence than it is anything else these days, for better or worse. But it does help to have the fans tweet and post up on social media.
It's super important at this point to actually engage with people on social media. You need to buy their merch. You need to like their tweets. You need to follow them. You need to retweet. And if you're wrestling, you should be tweeting at them while they're wrestling and be tweeting at the promotion at the same time. And most promotions absolutely handle that. So it's super important. And on that note, I'm going to give you the final word.
Hey, man, again, and thanks for having me, man. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and look forward to doing this again. Maybe not in maybe a better lit. I'm looking how dark it is. I don't know with my tan if you're going to be able to see me as well, but maybe in a better lit atmosphere. But certainly hope to touch base with you, man. Thanks again.
And on that note, it's a wrap.